I want to really know the whole inception of this because it's been a long time coming, this film.
Yeah.
And also your relationship with John Sayles,
Mm-hmm.
and especially Lucky. I mean,
Yeah.
because you were involved with the woman. So
Yeah.
how do we get from that point 10 years ago to where we are now?
I co-produced The Woman with Lucky McKee. His father and I came to Massachusetts and lived with my wife and I for the summer. And Lucky and I became good friends. He shared the script with me right off the bat, and and he was still working on it, so we got to sit in his little office in my house, and we talked about it every day for a couple weeks, and just became good friends over that summer. And we did a lot of. It was a really, really low budget and a hard shoot, and I really admired Lucky's other films and him as a person. He's just a very, very good, sweet, kind human being.
And the concept for this, I mean, it's all in the title.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the man who killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot. I mean,
Yeah.
have you got a particular sort of like love of the whole Bigfoot myth? What is it?
I love Coast to Coast AM, which is an American radio show that talks about the paranormal and Bigfoot and aliens. And I've spent a lot of time in El Paso and driving through the desert, and there's something really fun and strange about riding through the desert at night, listening to Coast AM and all these crazy ideas of what could be out there. So I think that's back in the back of my head somewhere, but it's not. It wasn't. There was no real. I don't have a really good answer why it's Bigfoot. It felt mythic and large, and it felt like something that could stand up against Hitler. If you have Hitler in a movie, what bad guy could this guy kill that could possibly be half as interesting or worse? And then I realized nobody can be worse, so I'm going to make the Bigfoot a good guy, but he's carrying this heinous plague, and if it were to get to the population, it would wipe everybody out.
So how did the script evolve? I mean, did it change as you went on and on throughout the years, or is it made the same?
It was primarily, when I set out to write it, it was this kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark pulp adventure, and I wanted to do kind of like a new James Bond. I thought that it could be kind of if John Steinbeck and Norman Rockwell did a pulp adventure together, what would that look like? And that was one of the earliest ideas. And as I started writing it, I just decided to take it really seriously and try to find the reality in it and try to make it as human as it could possibly be. And the more I went down that road, the more I was interested in what it was revealing. And there was some personal pain going on in my wife and I's life with some losses that we suffered at that time. And it just changed the whole shape of what I was writing, and also the reasons I was writing. I was sitting down writing to escape all of that. And so instead of writing this hopeful, courageous story about a young hero looking forward, I started writing about this older hero that is full of loss and regret looking backwards.
So Sam Elliott, I mean Joel Cohen and Frances McDormand, they were quite crucial in this to you. So tell me how.
Well, John Sayles just sent me an email one morning, and we were trying to figure out who was going to play Calvin Barr, and it was this discussion with a lot of ideas of who it might be, and nobody really felt right. And John went to, I think, breakfast or lunch with Joel and Frances, and they got talking about Sam, and just gave a big nod to him, having worked with him, I think, in The Big Lebowski.
Let's bring you in, Joe. I mean,
Sure.
A, how do you know each other? And B, I mean, why did you particularly want to do this film? I mean, it obviously needed something really sort of like epic behind it, I think. And that's what you supply, I think. I mean, what do you...
I met Bob through a cartoon that he writes and illustrates, a comic strip called Elsie Hooper. And he'd made a short film with puppetry. It's this great noir puppet short film. And he asked me to do the music, and we spoke on the phone, and I could tell right away that he was like incredibly passionate about filmmaking. But what was most attractive to me was that he wanted proper music in the movie. And there's very much a sort of sense in the air right now of textural film scoring that doesn't use themes and doesn't use musical motifs and character identification in the score, but rather is like a texture that just sort of lays there and affects the audience. It sort of pacifies or sort of lulls the audience without stepping on the film in any way whatsoever. And I feel like that's starting to run its course, and it's really fun to work with a filmmaker who wants a theme. And so as The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot sort of popped up on my radar as he mentioned it, you know, after Elsie Hooper, he said, I want you to read this script because I think I want you to score this movie. And I read about the first 20 pages, and I don't read scripts usually because I'd rather go into the film clean. But they hadn't shot the film yet, and he wanted to know if I was going to be on board. And I got 20 pages in and said, I don't want to read anymore. I've seen Elsie Hooper. I've read the first 20 pages. I'm in.
Did it take you very long to come up with that? I mean, how do you work? I've always wanted to know.
Yeah.
I've spoken to very few composers, but I mean, is it an easy process?
Well, I mean, I've been very lucky that I've had a lot of opportunities to score feature films and short films and TV movies. So I've got sort of a method of working that, I wouldn't say it's easy, but I've had a lot of practice. So I sort of feel like I've got a method down. And for me, it involves watching the movie as much as I possibly can. Sometimes if there's a temp score that the director feels has value to me, I'll listen to the temp score once or twice, but then I watch it without any music whatsoever. And then I will turn off the sound and just watch it visually. And then I will not look at the screen and just listen to the movie. And I try to experience it in a number of different ways. And away from the film, then I start coming up with ideas, you know, and I'll think of something, you know, when I'm driving or when I'm in the shower or whatever. I'll get this idea, oh, you know, Calvin is this kind of character. Maybe this kind of musical idea will work. And I keep a sketchbook and I put a thematic idea together for Calvin, and we had a Skype call and I played it over the Skype and he liked it. And then I came to El Paso where they were cutting the movie and played some for him on his piano and where he was staying. And we decided, yeah, I think that's the theme for Cal.
Let's have about the Bigfoot himself, herself. Just visually, from a sort of like the look. How did you? I mean, it's sort of like what we would be expecting a Bigfoot to look like. Yeah. I mean, could you you thought that there's no point veering from the accepted sort of idea of this?
I just made him a little smaller. I thought that it would be, you know, nice if he wasn't 8 feet tall, if he was more the size of a man. And I also thought his feet don't need to be that big, because it's a great joke having Sam Elliott say he didn't have that big feet either. So I just liked I liked the idea of subverting your expectations, but also embracing them in some ways, and hopefully surprising you and making it more interesting. He's incredibly emaciated. He's sick. He's got these big golem-like eyes. And Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein illustrations were a huge influence. I pictured the Bigfoot got at one point, I wrote out the history of Bigfoot for John Sayles, because he said, look at any monster. He's like, write up a scientific study of the creature, and you know, give me the study of what this thing's been through, what it's like, its habits, where does it get its food. And so from that came the notion it was a vegetarian, and how it would eat, where it hides its dung, all of these things that kind of get scattered and hidden through the movie to make it more real. So that was kind of the fun of designing the Bigfoot. And John Gardner's Grendel was a huge influence as well, the book that tells Beowulf from the perspective of the monster. So in my mind, I have this whole history of what that Bigfoot's been through, and its final chapter is being killed by this mysterious hunter.